first, a greeting to all the doctors and participants joining us today. If you're joining us for the first time, we're so happy to have you. And for the doctors who are with us, I'm so glad to be able to see you. I see so many names that I recognize on the participants list in front of me right now. Just a big welcome to everybody. And a reminder, you can ask your questions in the Q&A tab below. All right, and I'll do my best to answer. Tonight's Doctors Forum will keep the actual, I wouldn't say lecture, but the discussion sharing part of the portion short, and then we'll have a Q&A, and then after that, we will be able, we'll call it an early night tonight. All right, okay. Okay, the first poll is out. I just want to know who is actually participating. It's really cute. We have an answer in the poll. Very curious individual or patients, because we noticed although the Doctors Forum is targeted towards doctors, there are many patients and individuals that actually ask us if they can join. And tonight's breakdown is more than half the participants are doctors, and we have another 25% who are medical professionals. So it could be medical technicians and so on, or nurses or so on. And we actually have, wow, another 30%, another 25%, 30% who are just curious individuals. Okay, so that's good. Now, before I proceed to the start, I want to put in poll number 2. Can we put a poll? I just want to know everybody's understanding or where they are coming from. All right. So it's a simple question. Are you familiar with epigenetics and DNA? All right. Okay. And yeah. All right. And I can understand for many of us, even for myself, you know, we forget a lot of these things that we once read. Okay. All right. I can see here. More than half, 60% of the attendees today actually have basic understanding. That's great, right? And another 30% about 30% of the attendees today are not familiar with epigenetics and DNA. All right, okay. Okay, so tonight I'm gonna answer the question, which is, what is the mechanism of action? How does SimplyNature PPARS series actually work? And today we're going to cover 2 major users of our product. One is metabolic syndromes. So we're talking about diabetes, blood cholesterol, and the other one is actually cancer. And just an update for all our doctors that are joining us. Throughout the last 1.5 years, SimplyNature has actually been supporting our active doctors. And we have quite a few doctors who have been very active even through this entire pandemic. And we're very glad to say that we're actually working with oncologists right now. And I think I want to show one. Okay, let me share this screen. I think I want to share this screen. Yeah, okay. Here, I just wanted to start with this. Am I sharing it correctly? Full screen. All right. Okay. Yeah, this is actually a patient with colorectal cancer stage 2. All right, and you can see this amazing results, right? The original test was in April, and the results came out in June. So you can see what an incredible improvement in terms of the test results. Okay, I also want to share another one. Let me share another I want to share this video. Okay, I want to share this video. This is the one, Junie. This is the one with the metastasized breast cancer. Am I correct? All right. Okay, a little bit about a background before I share this next video to our attendees. This is actually one of our doctor's patients. Okay, the patient is actually going to share a very quick sharing of a testimony. But a little bit of background. This patient actually went for chemotherapy. She has 4th stage breast cancer metastasized to the bones. All right. Now she went for one. I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 I believe it was one session of chemotherapy, and she felt so bad. She couldn't take it anymore. She actually said no to chemotherapy, and she consulted with one of our doctors, Dr. Johnson, who's actually one of our attendees today. So what happened was that Dr. Johnson, who practices lifestyle medicine and specializes in cancer patients, persuaded her, told her she needed to go back for chemotherapy because her cancer metastasized to the bones, and there really isn't many natural protocols that will be able to help her. And at the very least, she needed to slow the cancer down. Now, at the same time, of course, she shared that her chemotherapy sessions were really terrible. And in my conversation with Dr. Johnson said to me, yeah, he understands. If he had those side effects, he would be so afraid of chemo too. But he persuaded her, he talked to her, and in the end, she first went on our SimplyNature PPARS liquid extract, and that got her strong and gave her the enough strength and confidence to go back for chemotherapy. And now I believe she's concluded more than 6 or 7 cycles already. And here's her story. Maybe you just can listen to her. Hallelujah. Okay. Play, right? Oh.
Talagang pinagdidiin ako kay Dr. Johnson, ayoko, PPARS na lang pero ayoko ng chemo. Sabi niya, mas maganda raw na mag-chemo, wag ako matakot kasi nandiyan naman si PPARS na tutulong para ma-restore yung good cell. Nung nagte-take ako ng PPARS, 1 month, nakatayo na ako ng walang hawak. Nakakapagluto na ako ngayon, nakakapag-shopping. At ito pa, yung side effect na sinabi nilang maluluks, hindi nangyari sa akin. Yak na kanina. Dapat, mararamdaman ko yung sobrang sakit, hindi ako makakatayo, nakahiga lang ako, pero hindi ko naramdaman lahat yun. Onco ko dati, binigyan pa ng morphine, hindi ko tinetake yun. As in, wala akong pain relief, makakatayo, nakahiga lang ako, pero hindi ko naramdaman lahat yun. Onco ko dati, binigyan pa ako ng morphine, hindi ko tinetake yun. As in, wala akong pain reliever talaga. Pero lumipat ako ng onco sa St. Luke. Nagulat siya, sabi niya, yung itsura mo ngayon, dito sa mga result, lalo na yung latest result, parang hindi daw. Sinabi ko din kay doktora yung PPARS. Kaya parang naano rin siya na ituloy ko lahat kung ano yung ginagawa ko ngayon. Kasi laki nga daw ng improvement. Sa SimplyNature and PPARS, talagang may kagaling.
All right. Okay. So that's a very nice testimony and case study from one of our doctors, and we've had quite a few other patients as well. We have an oncologist that's working with us, and he has worked it into his standard protocol to actually prescribe soft gel capsules to help his chemo patients. The chemoprotective aspect, so that his patients don't go through all the side effects that's commonly associated with chemotherapy. And our oncologists actually gain confidence because, again, same like the case study that you just viewed, he had a chemo patient who could not continue with the chemotherapy sessions, and that's when he prescribed he prescribed soft gels actually, and that was enough to get the patient back, the health back in order, and the patient then continued chemotherapy and didn't have any of the side effects. So again, I know we have a mixture of doctors here, MDs and NDs, but I just wanted to say that at least what's very encouraging is with SimplyNature PPARS series, we've now been able to harness the effectiveness of chemotherapy because we are able to mitigate its side effects. All right, let's go to tonight's topic, okay? Tonight's topic, I'm going to cover, I thought about it, and I thought that the best way to approach it is first a theoretical approach. That means we are going to discuss what is PPARS. In fact, that's a common question. Peroxisome proliferator activate receptors. What actually is that? and what can it do? And then after that, we're going to take a look at SimplyNature PPARS and what it can do. So let me start by sharing. Let me share screen. Okay, we will go for this one. All right. Okay. This is actually my handwritten notes. Trying a new app today. All right. So what is PPARS? PPARS is peroxisome proliferator activated receptors. Okay, that's molecular biology. All right. So what is it actually? It's a nuclear receptor protein that functions as transcription factors regulating the expression of genes. Right. So just a crash course for those who are not familiar with DNA. All right. So how does your cells replicate? How does it work? Let me show you this video, okay? Just watch this video. Okay, it's loading.
PPARs are modulatory proteins present in cell nuclei. They are members of a large family of transcription factors controlling gene expression, collectively called the nuclear hormone receptors. When bound to their ligands, PPARs turn on or off the expression of genes that influence cellular metabolism in specific ways. Following activation by its ligand, a PPAR is triggered to interact with its transcriptional partner RXR, and together to bind specific DNA sequences called peroxisome proliferator response elements. This triggers a cascade of events, culminating in the transcription of new messenger RNA molecules from the target genes by RNA polymerase II.
All right, that was a very short video. And hold on. Okay, that was a very short video, but I think that it's very effective. We just wanted to show you. Let me share screen again so that we can go back. Here's a little bit of history. Peroxisome, all right? Timeline, in the 1960s, the Swiss team noted peroxisomes in mouse liver. They actually saw the body mass there. And that's where the peroxisome came into the, I guess, the focus of the research community, the scientific community. In the 1970s, the term peroxisome proliferation was coined. And in the 1980s, PPARS, peroxisome proliferator activated receptors, was coined, and there are 3 isoforms. That means 3 forms of PPARs, all right? Alpha, beta, and gamma. Beta is also commonly known as delta, all right? Okay. Now, back to the video that we saw, and a reminder, a crash course for those who don't know much about DNA, right? In your cell, there's a nucleus, right? And your DNA is found in the nucleus. Now, the DNA doesn't actually come out of the nucleus because it's too big. It stays in the nucleus of the cell. And what happens is that the DNA directs the formation of RNA. And now during the COVID-19, we keep hearing an mRNA vaccine. Okay, so the RNA is important because the RNA then goes out to the outside of the nucleus, because it can exit, it's smaller, it's a single strand, right? And what it does is that it then provides the instruction for creating proteins, all right? And basically the building blocks of your body. Okay, so that's how DNA, RNA works. Now, from DNA to RNA, it's called transcription, all right? That's what it means, to transcribe, from DNA to transcribe and create RNA. And RNA to proteins is translation, okay? So that's why PPARs are actually nuclear receptors that influence the transcription process, all right? So it's very early in the entire process of how your gene works. And you saw from the video over there, what actually happens, right? What actually happens for PPARs is that when PPARs are activated, okay, they actually affect the production or the sequencing of an RNA. And that starts and influences the rest of your body's cellular life and production, right? Starts from DNA, goes to RNA, then RNA determines the protein formation. And that's the building block of your body. So basically, PPARS is really a gene activator, all right? And what is important? What's important to note? Why is PPAR receptors so important? It's important because it can be activated with ligands, right? we want to affect genes, right? So PPARs is important in the modulation of numerous gene pathways. So basically, PPAR receptors affect our genetic makeup or expression, our genetic expression. So PPARs epigenetically interact with other proteins, all right? And so it really does have an effect on your body. Now, what makes PPARs so unique or important is because it can be activated with ligands. So you don't need to splice the gene or cut the gene or to do something to the gene. You can actually activate and affect your epigenetics by simply using ligands to activate PPARs. And the ligands or the agonists for PPARs is actually fatty acids and fatty acid derivatives, okay? So how does this relate to our product? Our product is SimplyNature PPARS, but that's not technically correct. We are actually SimplyNature PPAR agonist. Our products contain fatty acids that can activate the PPAR receptors. And just as a teaser, how does the PPARs epigenetically interact with the rest of the proteins, and how does that affect your health? Well, one example is the anti-inflammatory action. We always share that when you take PPAR tablets or PPAR extracts, it helps to manage your inflammation. So how is that? What's the mechanism of action for that? Okay, as you can see from the video, what happens, an RNA strand is then released and it affects and interacts with other proteins. For in this case, it actually, the action for anti-inflammatory action is actually by attenuating the NF-kappa B signaling, all right? And that just cascades down and affects the inflammation. Okay, I'm just gonna cover two broad, the two main isoforms of PPARs, alpha and gamma, all right? There's actually alpha, gamma, beta, delta, okay? But I'm only gonna cover alpha and gamma because alpha and gamma is abundant in our SimplyNature PPARs. And so what I'm going to share right now is how PPARS alpha affects, what are its mechanisms of action? What does it actually affect? When you trigger PPARS alpha receptors, what happens in your body? Hey, this is a summary. So if you want an in-depth breakdown of what actually happens, the biochemistry of it all, then just drop me a question, and I will actually send you a link to. One thing I love is that now YouTube is like a university. So many scientists have actually made great videos to go into detail how PPAR alpha actually works. All right, but I put here in summary for your easy reference. Right, number one. PPARS alpha receptors regulates serum lipid homeostasis, okay? It regulates serum lipid homeostasis. Now, the transcription of fatty acid, it also is responsible for the transcription of fatty acid catabolizing enzymes, okay? So that means the transcription of fatty acid catabolizing enzymes is increased. Now, the moment you look at that, you now have a clue or an insight, how come our tablets actually lower blood cholesterol, right? How come it actually lowers blood cholesterol? Because that's the mechanism of action. The HDL is actually increased via the increase of expression of alpha lipoprotein A, okay? Again, how does that do that? How does it actually technically do that? You saw from the video how when you activate a PPAR receptor, how it will affect the transcription of an RNA, and that interacts with the different types of proteins and reactions, and that will give you the results that you see. It's also responsible for mitochondrial oxidation regulation. So these four simple effects or action of PPARS alpha is basically like textbook understanding, okay? This is what happens. Of course, later I'm going to discuss if PPAR alpha does this, how come there isn't drugs that can simulate all these effects. All right, we'll discuss that later. Now let's take a look at PPARS gamma. Okay, PPARS gamma, the adipose tissue is the main target of PPARS gamma action. All right, it actually promotes the terminal differentiation of adipocytes. Okay, so again, you can see why that actually affects diabetes and blood cholesterol. All right, especially blood cholesterol, and that's why our PPAR tablets are so effective, because that's the function of PPAR gamma receptors. Okay, this next one is why it affects cancer. Again, I chose a very simplified way. Yeah, it's just a general statement, but I'm going to show you a very interesting perspective. One, it basically inhibits tumor genesis. Now, over the years, every time I met with doctors, some doctors actually do a lot of research. So they go online, they go to the PubMed, and they go and find a lot of research papers, right? So you will notice that the research papers there are some research papers that actually say, like, for example, PPAR alpha actually promotes, all right? PPAR alpha actually promotes liver cancer. So some research paper says that PPAR alpha is liver carcinogenic, okay? But is that really true? Okay, well, the answer is no. Okay, and for PPAR gamma, there were also a lot of papers that were ambivalent. That means you see some research papers say it's good for its chemopreventive. You see some papers says that it increases cell proliferation, so that's not good for cancer. So in the 1990s, there were actually a few research articles that came out that said all that, right? And in response, the research community actually went into like super overdrive. And lots of scientists and researchers actually put a lot of effort to relook at the effects of PPAR alpha and PPAR gamma. So let me first tackle the PPAR alpha. They said that PPAR alpha was liver carcinogenic. It turns out that the PPAR alpha for mice is liver carcinogenic. All right. However, the human body is like a refractory response to that. And in fact, later research proved that PPAR alpha, human PPAR alpha does not have carcinogenic effect on the liver at all. And they tested it for years on mice. And there is no long-term effect. It absolutely just does not happen, right? So actually, there is a big difference between testing on mouse and human versions. So in the end, it shows that the human PPAR alpha actually promotes or regulates serum lipid homeostasis and has no negative side effects, especially when we talk about liver carcinogenic. All right. Now, next, the PPARS gamma. Again, when you go to PubMed, you take a look at the year, depends on what year the research comes out. Okay, there are some mixed signals about its effect on cancer. Okay, so what happened was that, like I said, in response to those mixed research results, the scientific community and the research community actually went all out to aggressively investigate and tackle this. In the end, the consensus today is that the mechanism of action, that PPARS gamma is chemopreventive. Okay, and the proof is this: when they chemically knock out the PPAR gamma receptors in the test subjects, the tumor genesis increases. So it's conclusive that PPAR gamma receptors are important in the management of tumor genesis. So basically, activating PPAR gamma would actually inhibit tumor genesis, and it is basically chemopreventive in nature. All right. Wow, that's it. That's it. This is the background that I wanted to share with everyone, because again, our doctors ask us, what is the actual mechanism of action? Well, you just take a look at the textbook molecular biology and consensus of the research community on the PPARS mode of action and its effect, then you will know that yes, in theory, the actual effect is supposed to be chemopreventive. It's supposed to be able to regulate your metabolic syndromes. Now, here's the question. Why are they side effects? Triglycerides, which is a PPAR gamma drug, all right, is actually a PPAR gamma ligand, all right, agonist, a synthetic compound, is actually pulled off the market because it had side effect. It actually created liver problems, right, and had heart palpitations as well. But so why is it that if PPARS alpha and gamma has this effect, how come there isn't drugs that effectively chemopreventive? Why, if you take, for example, triglycerides or pure glitazones, why doesn't your cancer tumor shrink? Okay, now there is a gap in there. Understanding that understanding the mechanism does not immediately translate, all right, to an effective drug because the human body's interaction is multifaceted. All right, so there have been many PPAR drugs that have been proven to be effective moderately. Some have side effects, some don't have that serious side effects. But again, how come it doesn't manifest as the theory implies? Well, the answer is, again, back to the simple answer is the body's interaction is very complicated and the full mechanism and components are not fully understood. But what we do understand at this point is the effect that PPAR alpha and gamma, its role in the body, all right? And this is very pronounced by what happens when you knock out. Basically, what happens when you remove your PPAR gamma and alpha receptors? Your cancer tumor count goes up, right? Your lipid modulation goes haywire. So it's very clear that PPAR alpha and gamma is crucial, and activating them will give you positive results. Now, the challenge is actually forming drugs that will actually give you this result. Again, some doctors ask me, you know, wow, Shan, if triglycerides are dangerous, then is SimplyNature PPARS, is it safe for long-term consumption? And the simple question is actually, if you ask yourself, why is triglyceride banned or removed from the market, yet pure glitazones and isoglitazones are still being sold? They are all PPAR gamma agonists. So in short, all PPAR gamma agonists are not made equal. All right. And the real problem with all these drugs is that these are compounds. These are chemical compounds done in isolation. And here I want to move to our SimplyNature PPAR products. Again, doctors always ask me about explaining, will PPAR work for it? Will PPAR work for my patient, for this case, for that case? I want to share with everybody that let me turn it around and say this, right? When I present all these techniques, all our research has to be looked at from a totally different angle. Now, again, here it is. Scientists and researchers in isolation have studied PPARS alpha and gamma and have concluded that it should have this effect. And the pharmaceutical companies then, armed with this knowledge, try to synthesize or create a compound that manifests these effects. That is not SimplyNature's product. When in SimplyNature, when we look at these scientific research, it's not that we take the research and then go and create something based on the research. No, it's not that. It's the fact that when we look at the research, we gain understanding. We gain understanding of why our product works. So to all the doctors out there, we first realized our product worked before we understood before the research actually came. So the whole process is basically diametrically different from a pharmaceutical approach. I think since we are in Philippines, I can use this example, right? I can use this example that in the Bible, God said that he limited our lifespan to 120 years. And we know that from the Dead Sea Scrolls that the Bible was written a long time ago, more than, 2,000 years ago, right? And even before that, we have the Torah, which is actually where I believe the Pentateuch, right? So that I think that's where the lifespan is shortened to 120 years. So this was written a long time ago. But today scientific research has shown that telomeres that determine our lifespan has shown us that we can only live basically to 120. So it was not the knowledge of the telomeres that established the fact that we live only 120 years. It was, we know we live maximum 120 years, and then we understood the mechanism is the telomeres, right? So I hope that the doctors that are listening today can understand where I'm coming from as I try to support you in all your questions, right? We saw our product work, and then it's through this research that we understand how it works. Now, the safety aspect of SimplyNature PPARS is this. Our product has been in existence for 40 years. Yes, 40, for more than 40 years. And it's been eaten by hundreds of thousands of people. That's a level of testing that, well, very few drugs can attest to. And we've only in the last 10 years focused its application on metabolic syndromes and cancer. And the reason is very simple, because in the early days of our product usage, we started to, when technology and news became more widespread, we got more feedback, right? We were able to collect more feedback from users and from clients. And that's when they started to share with us all the effects that they felt when they took our product. And that's when we, about 18 years ago, we decided to put funds into research to determine what makes our product click. And that was when we discovered that our microalgae, our unique strain, right, contains natural PPAR agonists in the form of fatty acids. As we learned in the early slide, for PPARs, PPAR ligands are actually in the form of fatty acids and fatty acid derivatives. So the natural composition of our microalgae had the right fatty acid composition that created a PPAR ligand effect. So that's why SimplyNature PPARs are PPAR agonists. Okay. Now, with that perspective, I would just want to take the opportunity to just go over a few of our research, and then I will end our session. I will end this part, and then we go to the Q&A. Okay. I hope that this is helpful. It took me some time to figure out how to put this whole thing in the right perspective. But I just want to show you a few more things, just in case you have questions. I want to show you what is available. Okay, what do we have available for your reference? Okay, so this is an example. This is actually a presentation slide done by Dr. Zhao Yusen. Dr. Zhao Yusen is actually a formulator from Merck & Co. He was a lead investigator or researcher formulator for Merck & Co.'s PPAR-based drugs. Okay, and he actually did a presentation for our company to a group of doctors, right? To a group of doctors. And these are just excerpts from his slides. So you can see as a researcher, you can see his literature is very research oriented, okay? So he was just showing about rosiglidazones, pioglidazones, okay? And again, here, these are the mechanisms of action. So our PPAR's effectiveness to lower blood sugar and blood cholesterol is the same mechanism. The only difference is that the ligand itself is a natural fatty acid as opposed to pharmaceutical drug, which is a synthetic compound. All right. And because it's a compound, that's where all the side effects and complications also come. Now, I alluded just now that how come these compounds don't have the full effect of what PPARS is supposed to be able to do? I think I can only draw a analogy or comparison. It's very commonly known that carrots, eating boiled carrots or steamed carrots is good for lung cancer, or it lowers your risk of lung cancer. But yet at the same time, if you take beta carotene, you actually increase your risk of lung cancer. If you take a beta carotene extract, all right, then you actually increase your risk of lung cancer. This is just a very simple but interesting analogy that within a natural food, there are thousands, literally thousands of different phytonutrients and trace minerals and nutrients, minerals, vitamins, and nutrients that are not studied. Right? It took us more than 20 years to fully understand one simple vitamin C. And it took a few more decades for us to understand the importance of vitamin E, vitamin D, and even then we do not understand its mixed composition. That means how they interact with one another in complete picture. So you can see why, although the PPAR alpha and gamma mechanism of action is supposed to do this, yet drugs are not able to fully realize its full potential because it will need the interaction of other minerals, phytonutrients, and other natural botanical compounds to come into its full effect. I think even among doctors, I think we can all agree if you could eat an orange, you get a better effect than just taking a vitamin C pill. Unfortunately, you can't eat enough orange for the level of concentration that you want. Right? But again, the example is very pertinent because we know that in the white part of the orange skin is where you find your bioflavonoids. And that actually works in conjunction with vitamin C, preserving it in the body. So again, by God's design, by nature, our micro tablets and our natural extracts, because it contains all the phytonutrients and other nutrients, is fully able to materialize or better able to materialize the effects that PPAR is supposed to have on the body, on lipid homeostasis, on chemopreventive functions, on anti-inflammatory functions, right? Okay, so again, I'm just showing Dr. Zhao's slides to show you the technical aspects that are available to you, to all our doctors if you make a request. So this is very interesting, and this is borne out in actual prescription by our own doctors. If you combine SimplyNature PPAR tablets, just for example, for the doctors you prescribe PPAR Plus tablets, when you combine it with metformin, the efficacy of metformin actually increases, right? You can actually see that that if you take metformin and combine it with PPAR tablets, PPAR gamma, you can actually see a drop in the fasting glucose much more pronounced than just metformin alone. Okay, what does that mean? That means that when you can prescribe your patients who are on metformin our PPAR tablets and together with their metformin, and they will actually see an improved effect of their blood sugar management. In fact, one of our doctors was sharing with me that he's been practicing and seeing so many metabolic syndrome patients that he got tired of them coming to him and say, "Doc, how come my blood sugar, my blood cholesterol is still like that? Why is it such a chronic problem?" That he's been actually starting to prescribe them SimplyNature PPAR tablets, PPAR Plus, and the patients are seeing great results. Because if you can understand, as you have seen, the function of PPARS receptors, when you activate it, all right, it actually is supposed to naturally help your body regulate your metabolic pathways. And that's why your blood sugar, blood cholesterol comes down, okay? All right, so let me stop this one.